Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The current unfolding situation in Afghanistan has compelled us to momentarily stop our research presentations. It has been reported by The Independent that there's been a blast in the Kabul airport, which 180 casualties was the result of, and dozens wounded. The blast was claimed by ISIS-K, the ISIS branch of Afghanistan. Men, women, and children were massacred in this blast, and many of them were the Hazara Shia. I ask Subhan to play the video.
𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗥𝗧.
As can be seen by the video, hundreds of the Afghanis were in dismay and terrified due to this horrendous attack at the Kabul airport. Speculations have been raised with regards to this attack. Was the suicide bombing conspired between the Taliban and ISIS-K? It is reported, and many news articles have covered this, as the blast falls into the benefits of the Taliban. The Taliban, ever since they have overtook the city of Kabul, have been trying to prevent the Afghanis, their citizens, or the people of Afghanistan from exiting the country, from fleeing their country. And they have resorted to many methods, even torturing, even brutal punishments for those who are trying to leave. And only one can see the mutual benefits between ISIS-K and the Taliban in this horrendous blast. And it is thought that the Taliban were aware of such scheme by ISIS-K and allowed it to happen. This is a group of political researchers, analysts. And the other claim that no, ISIS-K and the Taliban were the attack in the Kabul airport was mutually plotted by ISIS-K and the Taliban. And we will go to an article by The Sun to present this matter to you. If Subhan can please put the article online or on the show. The article is by The Sun. An inside job. Taliban's head of security at Kabul airport linked to ISIS-K, raising fears he helped the bomber. This individual, whose name is Khalil Haqqani, is now the head of security at Kabul airport. He is the head of security at Kabul airport when he has a dark past of terrorism and suicide bombings throughout the last, I would say, 3 decades. He's an al-Qaeda militant who America has put him on a list of the most wanted, who has a bounty over his head of over $5 million. It states, it is feared that Taliban's self-proclaimed head of security at Kabul airport has helped the bomber to cause the devastating explosion, killed at least 169 people. However, latest estimates say, especially by The Independent, that the killed of this blast, those who were killed by this blast, by the suicide bombing, was over 180. And these numbers are continuing to increase as the wounded die. The Haqqani network has been blamed for some of the deadliest terror attacks across the world in the recent years. They have been designated as a foreign terrorist group by the United States, and the jihadists are also under United Nations sanctions. But despite being part of the Taliban, experts believe that the group is autonomous thanks to their reputation. They are expected to be powerful players in the new regime following the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan, casting doubts on the group's pledge not to harbor terrorists. This matter was a pledge. They've given a pledge, the Taliban, as far as they've claimed, to have given a pledge not to harbor terrorists, militants. But we would know, ladies and gentlemen, in the coming days, in the coming weeks, in the coming years, that Afghanistan, if still under the power and stronghold of the Taliban, shall be the mother country to all terrorists, shall be the haven for all terrorists worldwide. Terrorists worldwide would go to Afghanistan to seek training and go forth to spread terror throughout the world. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we face a new phase of terrorism. A new phase like we've never seen before. Terrorism today is as strong as it ever was. We do not face those who don't know how to fly airplanes. We will not face those who can't use American warplanes and helicopters. Within the coming days, within the coming weeks, within the coming months, within the coming years, we will discover that terrorism today governs a country. Terrorism governs. And it's only a matter of time before we deeply suffer the consequences to allowing this to happen. It's funny enough to mention that the United States of America, a year ago, under the Trump administration, was overtaking negotiations with the Taliban. And there, as it is reported, that the Taliban expressed no interest in overtaking the country. the Taliban expressed its reform and that they have changed and they have reviewed their past and critically scrutinized their actions and their methodology. And today they have come to a new day and age where the leaders are different and we have a different ideology. This is what they were trying their best to do. And by trying their best to do, I mean the individual by the name of 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗦𝗦𝗧 Baradar. 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗦𝗧 Baradar, who was in prison, then released by the US under negotiations. This individual is a very shrewd individual. He is not to be taken lightly. 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗦𝗧 Baradar is definitely a character that will deceive many. He is not an easy opponent. This individual was a shrewd politician and has a sharp mind, as well as an animalistic and brutal and horrendous method or methods of taking power. This man has no limits. This man would go through, he has no forms of red lines to what he deems to be truth. And this individual will try to get out of anything with politics, negotiate, go through the longest lengths. And you'd find him getting out of things that people think you would never get out of it. How has this individual, 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗦𝗧 Baradar, after his dark terrorist past and his affiliation with Mullah Omar, how does the US, after all of this, after all of his dark past, them knowing his past, divulge in a conversation and negotiation with him? It's just like us, it's just like the US or any country divulging and engaging in negotiations with Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, except that he's much dumber than 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗦𝗧 Baradar. It's just like we're going through negotiations with Osama bin Laden, who's not far from him. 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗦𝗧 Baradar was the brother-in-law, or is the brother-in-law of Mullah Omar, the founder of the Taliban, or one of the founders of the Taliban. This individual shall be a huge threat to the Shia Muslims and the Muslims, rather humanity worldwide. He is the new face of terrorism. He is the new Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. And we call everyone not to fall to his games. This individual has had a strong grip on his soldiers, had a strong grip on the Taliban fighters, restricting them and writing for them or planning for them their approach, what to do, what not to do. He has written a book. He has written a short book which teaches the Taliban fighters their methodology in this new phase of governing. And he's made it mandatory for all fighters to read this book and adhere to the rules and regulations within. Afghanistan, ladies and gentlemen, would be the haven for terrorists if we don't act and stop this immediately. Afghanistan will be the mother to all terrorists worldwide to seek their training, to have intelligence. Today, terrorism governs. And this is, of course, I must mention that this is due to Biden's foolishness and incompetence and lack of prudence, as it is shown and as it has been clear via his brief reign. Biden, on the 8th of July, deemed the overtake of the Taliban highly unlikely. It is due to Biden's imprudence that has resulted the Taliban's overtake in such a brief time. The Taliban overtook Afghanistan, a large country, in less than a month. In less than a month, the Taliban overtook Afghanistan. And on the 8th of July, prior to the, right in the midst of the Taliban attack, because they left the US forces, they left Afghanistan, or they began to almost leave, let's say, at the 1st of May, at the 1st of May. On July 8th, at the midst of the march and the force of the Taliban taking city by city is falling at this stage. On July 8th, Biden deemed the overtake of the Taliban highly unlikely. He said it is highly unlikely that the Taliban would overtake the country. And we ask here the director, Subhan, to play the video that is relevant to the statements. Joe Biden on the Taliban. Let me know when the video is ready, inshallah. Including his ministers, his people have tried to cover up this shortage in eyesight, stating that no one thought that the Taliban could overtake Afghanistan in such a short period of time. He says that this is not something that was planned. Subhan, let us know when the video is ready.
The video is ready.
The video is ready. Video is ready, ladies and gentlemen. Please take a look at Biden himself stating that it is highly unlikely that the Taliban would be taken Afghanistan in this short period of time.
Withdrawal and what happened in Vietnam with some people feeling...
None whatsoever. Zero. What you had is you had entire brigades breaking through the gates of our embassy. 6, if I'm not mistaken. The Taliban is not the North Vietnamese army. They're not remotely comparable in terms of capability. There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of a embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. It is not at all comparable. So the question now is, where do they go from here? That, the jury is still out. But the likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
As seen, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, had declared the overtake of the Taliban highly unlikely. I'm not sure if he was trying to fool himself or trying to fool the people. It is, and it was predicted and foreseen by not just people who are outside of the political realm, It was predicted even in religious circles. Our religious circles, for example, in Iran, in Afghanistan, not in Afghanistan, rather in Iraq, they have said that there is a danger, it's truly a danger, that's as the US withdraw their forces, the Taliban would overtake Afghanistan within a short period of time, as no force can face them. After years, rather decades of battle with the US, they have become experienced. They have become true, skilled fighters. How can the Biden administration, how can the supposed strongest country in the world not foresee this outcome? It is an embarrassment for the Joe Biden regime, administration, that he has failed to perceive and foresee the overtake of Afghanistan by the Taliban within the short period of time mentioned. And actually speculations say that no, he was very well aware that it was going to happen and it was only a matter of time. However, he was trying to fool the public. Because in the negotiations with the Taliban, they have said that we will withdraw as long as you don't face any military personnel. Yes, they sufficed the Afghanistan prior government under Ashraf Ghani, the prior president, the overtaken president, you can say, with weapons and with armor, etc. But they know that his government is frail and weak. Rather, what they've done with their lack of prudence and stupidity, to be frank, they have armed the terrorist group, the Taliban, with over 85 billion worth of armory. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we face a new phase of terrorism. The Taliban today is not like the Taliban yesterday. It's not the Taliban in the 1990s. It is not the Taliban in the 2000s. The Taliban today in 2021 has military armory, arsenal, Humvees, M16s. They have warplanes. Yes, they may not know how to use them in the current phase. However, most definitely, these resorts, these assets will be used, will be learned. Yes, they will learn how to use these aircrafts and warplanes to cause ravage throughout the world countries. And this is all due to the stupidity of Trump before Biden, and the lack of prudence of Joe Biden. I don't know if Subhan has a video where the video reveals the equipment that the Taliban have plundered. A large plunder, a great plunder. M16s, US arsenal and armory, Humvees, helicopters, Apaches, I think, also. It is unbearably to know that a terrorist organization now holds all of these assets. What would we do then? How can we today, if it will know sooner or later, we will know sooner or later, or it will happen sooner or later. This fooling that the Taliban have done to the people, this deceivement, them trying to deceive the people that they have changed and shifted their methodology, really and truly, they only fool themselves in this regard. Of course, we don't take any of what they say, especially with them lying from the outset. In their negotiations with the US a year ago, they expressed no interest in overtaking Afghanistan. They expressed no interest in overtaking the government. What they mentioned was that they would like to have a seat in the parliament. That is what they said. Did they express that they have even intentions to overtake Ashraf Ghani or overtake the Afghani government? They did not. They bought time. They bought time and they fooled the US people. Well, the US representative Mike Pompeo, although it is really far to say that they have fooled them. As it is far-fetched to say that the US government, with all its intelligence, did not know of a great mission, of a great launch, of a great march of the Taliban towards overtaking Afghanistan. All the preparations, this did not happen within a day or two, ladies and gentlemen. This was months and months of preparation. Are you trying to convince me that the US was totally unaware? US government, with all its intelligence, was totally unaware of the Taliban preparing to overtake Afghanistan. Months and months of preparations. We are not convinced with such rhetoric, with all honesty. Subhan, please. We have a video. You have titled it, Biden Leaves Devices for the Taliban. Please present this video, prepare this video to be shown to the people. I want the people to listen to this individual, this representative, who is in absolute shock. At least he has a form of humanity, perhaps portrayed or whatever, but at least this is what is apparent. This individual was absolutely startled of the amount of assets left for the Taliban to plunder. $85 billion worth of assets, of military assets. M16s, Humvees, helicopters, warplanes, and military equipment. Funny enough, the Taliban have mocked the US by wearing their armor. As recent pictures have showed, that you see Taliban fighters who normally wear the turban and the cultural Afghan clothing garments, wearing US helmets, US plates, shields, and wearing US army boots, as well as riding Humvees, and with the M16s.
The video is ready.
The video is ready. Please display the video.
My job there was as a foreign military sales officer, so I was on the front lines of acquiring the equipment that the Americans provided and turned over to the Afghan army and the Afghan police. I'm going to read to you what is so painful for me and so many other Afghan veterans who served in that capacity and others who served as a part of the train, advise, and assist, equip effort in helping the Afghans. We now know that due to the negligence of this administration, the Taliban now has access to over $85 billion worth of American military equipment. That includes 75,000 vehicles, over 200 airplanes and helicopters, over 600,000 small arms and light weapons. The Taliban now has more Black Hawk helicopters than 85% of the countries in the world. But they don't just have weapons. They also have night vision goggles, body armor, medical supplies, and unfathomable to me and so many others is that the Taliban now has biometric devices which have the fingerprints, eye scans, and the biographical information of the Afghans who helped us over the last 20 years. And here's what we just learned again in the briefing that we just walked out of, is this administration still has no plan to get this military equipment or these supplies.
As heard, ladies and gentlemen, after all of these assets plundered by the Taliban, Do we not have the right to worry? Do we as Shia Muslims, and here I represent the Hazara minority, is it not right for us to fear that our rights will be usurped? Do we not have the right to say that we will be oppressed, we will be killed, especially with them having all of these assets? Rather, I drift from my position as a Shia Muslim. Yes, I do worry about the Hazara community. Yes, I do worry about the Shias, as we are a people who have been oppressed for over a millennia. This matter is no secret. History has been flooded with our blood on its pages. But as of yet, I take a unbiased position. I don't say an unbiased position, rather I take a neutral standpoint. And I say, ladies and gentlemen, that humanity is in danger after the Taliban's plundering to all these assets. As heard in the video, it is unimaginable to think that today terrorism governs and will be sooner or later recognized as a legitimate state by the United Nations. This matter is going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. This matter is bound to happen. The US, sooner or later, would recognize Taliban as a legitimate government of Afghanistan. And from there, from Afghanistan, in the later years, we would recognize and we would know that it is the harbor, it is the safe haven for all terrorists worldwide. As said before, to seek their training and cause ravage internationally. We do not have trust. We do not have trust in this administration to save our rights as Shia Muslims. An objection can come and say, we understand that Biden made a mistake and was short in eyesight. However, these things happen, and it is not befitting that we put all the fault on him and his government and his administration. A person in that position, ladies and gentlemen, a person in that position cannot make such grave mistake. A person in that position will only know of the power of the Taliban and the strength that it has, and will know that the Afghan government, with all its military assets given by the US, with all its military personnel, over 350,000 worth, or 350,000 100,000 military personnel, has no power to face the Taliban. Why? It is because the Afghan government is filled with corruption. The Afghan government, the Afghani government, is filled with corruption, and the military personnel, the fighters of the Afghani government, has no trust. Do not depend on this weak, frail government that is rigged with corruption. It is only natural that the fighters would stop fighting. What do they have to fight for? Who will they be dying for? Ashraf Ghani. They'll be dying for a government that is weak, frail, rigged with corruption. Yes, maybe some fighters were willing to fight, as it was reported that when the city of Kandahar fell in the hands of the Taliban, 60,000, as far as I recall, 60,000 soldiers from the Afghani government put, a circle around, or let's say a military or a defense, a defense zone to the city of Kabul. They surrounded the city, they put everyone in their places, and they were prepared to fight off the Taliban from overtaking the country, from overtaking the city of Kabul. Around 60,000. And they were prepared to die. They said, we are prepared to die. We are prepared to fight off the Taliban even if we were to die. 60,000, as far as I recall. 60. Yet at the last second, orders came for them to withdraw and allow the Taliban to overtake the city of Kabul. What do they have? Realistically, of course, they should have fought the Taliban. Of course, they should not have adhered to such a frail, weak government. It is falling anyway. What is the point of adhering to their orders? And many of them deserted. The Afghan people have the right to defend itself from a wicked and horrendous, rather sordid government that displays, that deceives people with their display of neutralness and reform. The person who puts himself in the position of the President of the United States and makes such mistake, it is highly improper for a person of that rank to make such grave mistake, giving terrorism 85 billion worth of military assets. And this is why we say that it is not right, it is rather not fair that only the people of America get to elect their president. Other countries who will be affected by the decisions of this American government, American administration, resembling in that president, should also have a say in their election. The election to the US president should be a worldwide matter. They are a country that is very powerful, and their decisions affect other countries. The people should have a say as to who would be the president, as the decisions of this president would affect them. As the case with Biden. Now, today, because of Biden, millions around the world are in danger. Millions around the world are and will be threatened with death by suicide bombings. And we are surprised, ladies and gentlemen, to say that the Taliban or the President of the United States, Joe Biden, could not foresee such matter could not foresee the overtake of the Taliban to Afghanistan in such a short period of time, when this matter was foreseen by those who are outside the military, outside the US intelligence or US personnel under the administration of Joe Biden. This matter was foreseen, not just by political analysts, This matter was foreseen by scholars, religious scholars. And here it is noteworthy to mention that 𝗧𝗪𝗦𝗕𝗦𝗧 𝗧𝗪𝗦𝗕𝗦𝗧 in the month of Ramadan, 4 months prior to the attack and fall of Afghanistan, has or had predicted that the Taliban would overtake Afghanistan the moment America withdraws its forces. Sheikh al-Habib has said in the nights of the holy month of Ramadan that Afghanistan will fall to the government, or would fall in the hands of the Taliban, as soon as the US government pulls its forces. If this matter was foreseen by Sheikh al-Habib, of course, this is his field and this is his expertise, and he scrutinally foresaw this matter to happen. How can we say that the US government, with all its intelligence, could not foresee the matter? And multiple, as well as Joe Biden himself has said it, as we've shown on the clip, multiple ministers say it was, I don't believe, this minister said, I don't believe that it was foreseen by anyone that the Taliban would overtake Afghanistan in such a short period of time. We feel, ladies and gentlemen, that we cannot trust the US government to protect our rights. We cannot trust this frail government under Joe Biden to handle the situation properly. And this is why Sheikh al-Habib has said in a statement released a few days ago, and I asked Subhan to display the article on the show. In this article, ladies and gentlemen, on the Al-Habib website, titled "The Taliban Invasion and the Hazara Shia Crisis," he writes, "To our Hazara brothers and sisters, as you know more than anyone, the ideology on which the Taliban stand upon is rooted in bloodshed. So beware of affording them even an ounce of trust. These groups tend to evolve towards that which is more extreme. One can take the example in Iraq of al-Maqdisi and his student 𝗧𝗪𝗡𝗦𝗧 at the turn of the 21st century. The first took, i.e. al-Maqdisi, took a more lenient approach with the Shia, while the latter began mass executions. This matter, ladies and gentlemen, is something that is known. Terrorist groups who found or legitimized their actions through the ideology and the teachings of Abu Bakr and Umar tend to evolve to that which is more radical, that which is more extreme. We take the example of Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was the, let's say, the source or the mother of many terrorist groups, underneath which was ISIS. But later ISIS broke up, separated from Al-Qaeda, and with their separation, they developed more radical methods of terrorism to the extent that Al-Qaeda had to publicly denounce this group, even though it was the source of it. How do we know today that the Taliban would not change a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later? Maybe if we say, hypothetically speaking, even for the sake of argument, that the Taliban have really reformed and changed, although we will see, did they really reform and change or did they not? Were they fulfilling their promises or was it a mere deception? As they've only put their feet in the city of Kabul, in Afghanistan, they've already just had a grip of the country and they've already began to break their oaths, break their promises, and began massacring the Shia Hazara minority. We will present that in a few minutes, inshallah. However, we know that even for the sake of arguments, even if we were to say that the Taliban have truly reformed, how do we know that in the later years their ideology will change and they will go back to their old methods of tyranny and terrorism, to the extent that we have never seen before, with all its power and might, after years of governing, after years of reign? How do we know that? The Sheikh continues, our prayers are with the faithful Hazara in Afghanistan. The Sheikh says, depend on yourselves for safety. The Sheikh says, depend on yourselves for safety. Any arms you possess should never be surrendered. Prepare for the worst case scenario and defend yourselves, your women and children with no fear. Allah is watchful over His creation. The Sheikh calls, ladies and gentlemen, the Sheikh calls for a resistance against the Taliban government. It is a call to arms. It is a call to arms for the people of Afghanistan and the Shias worldwide to rise in defense of the Hazara minority, as well as eradicate terrorism under Al-Qaeda. Rather, eradicate terrorism as a whole. Sheikh al-Habib called for a resistance for the people of Afghanistan and the Shias worldwide to gather up and form a reign force in fighting terrorism worldwide. He has said, it is our firm belief it is our firm belief. If Subhan can, go back to the article. It is our firm belief, the Sheikh has said, it is our firm belief that only an upright, faithful Shia resistance force can indefinitely resolve this, as it is us who fully understand its ideological source. We call on the Marji'iyya to form and fund this group. If positioned correctly and executed with great foresight, such a group can be a beacon towards light, can be a beacon of light towards eradicating terrorism. This force, ladies and gentlemen, will be the force that eradicates terrorism worldwide. It is similar to that which 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗧𝗍𝗍 funded and called for in 2013 upon ISIS invasion to Iraq. 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗧𝗍𝗍, with his great foresight, called for a hashd, called for the Iraqi people to defend their country and to fight terrorism. Except that in this instance, Sheikh al-Habib, who has been speaking for some time, really, he has been speaking for over 2 decades, of this matter. The time is now, ladies and gentlemen. Let us not be delayed further. The Shias worldwide who are listening to this, and those who deem and have and believe in a responsibility that lies on their shoulders to defend the Shia minority in Afghanistan, as well as defending humanity from terrorism. We must act now, ladies and gentlemen. We must prove to the marja'iyah that we are ready to fight terrorism wherever it is. And if it's under a leadership that is strong, we would have international support. We would be under the United Nations, a force recognized by the United Nations and funded by them. If we prove only that we are really worthy of this responsibility and we are serious about what we say. We are serious about eradicating terrorism wherever it is. In Somalia under Boko Haram, in Afghanistan, Taliban, in Syria, Jabhat al-Nusra, in Iraq, in Libya, wherever it is, this force, this strong force of upright and righteous men who defend their people as well as defend humanity from terrorist organizations. These terrorist organizations, ladies and gentlemen, would not stop emerging. We must fight terrorism in its ideology. Sheikh al-Habib has said and spoken for over 2 decades now, and said that if you want to eradicate terrorism, it is not only done by force, it is not only done via power and might. If you want to eradicate terrorism in the name of Islam, you must attack the ideology. You must disprove the ideology, for the ideology is the problem. Where do these terrorist militants and terrorist leaders and terrorist organizations worldwide have the legitimacy to do their actions? From where do they take this? From where do they legitimize their actions? We attack the source, we attack the root. Why attack the branches? We defeated ISIS, correct? Yes, Trump indeed killed Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. But today we face a new ISIS. We face ISIS-K in Afghanistan. We can defeat ISIS-K and ISIS-J will come out from a different place. It's not prudent to fight off military or terrorist organizations without fighting its ideology. The two have to be merged together in order to have its impact. Otherwise, we are putting so much effort. We are exerting our efforts in the wrong place. These two go hand in hand. Fighting terrorist organizations worldwide and fighting the ideology of terrorism. The ideology that resembles itself under Abu Bakr and Umar. These two, Abu Bakr and Umar, are the forefathers of terrorism. If we do not point our arrows to them, we will never eradicate terrorism. You may fight ISIS, you may fight Al-Qaeda and destroy them. A new ISIS and a new Al-Qaeda will emerge later on. We fought ISIS in Iraq and killed its leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, to be faced with a new ISIS in Afghanistan under the title of ISIS-K with its new leader. Our efforts are being exerted in the wrong place, ladies and gentlemen. What we must do is take these two methods in fighting terrorism with force and fighting its ideology, a compilation and a merge in order to have impact and have success. The Sheikh says, we call on the Marji'iyah to form and fund this group. Subhan, if you display the article. We call on the Marji'iyah to form and fund this group. If positioned correctly and executed with great foresight, such a group can be a beacon of light towards eradicating terrorism. It is well within the realms of possibility for such group to attain massive international support. We call the Hazara community. We call to the Hazara the example of Imam Hussein, blessings be upon him, peace be upon him, who completely refused to give in to the demands of Yazid, son of Muawiyah. He remained firm and confident in the religion of Allah, no matter the consequence, which the Shia can forget. Which Shia can forget the divine bravery and loyalty to God. When Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, pointed people towards the event of Saqifa on the very battlefield of Karbala, saying, Abu Bakr and Umar have killed me. The Shaykh continues to say, be as Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, and his companions were. Let your stand be as their stand was. This is the mark of history. This is the mark of that history will remember. Those, the inhabitants of the heavens, will intercede. Be the true meaning of the word Shia. The one who refuses to compromise their standing with Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, and who also put them first and hold their head up high towards them. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the call of Sheikh al-Habib to the people of Afghanistan, and specifically to the Hazara community. As it has been proven that the Taliban are far from their promises and do not keep their promises. For they have begun almost immediately after taking the rule of Afghanistan to kill the Shia minority in Afghanistan. I ask Subhan to display the final article, in which we present Afghanistan Taliban responsible for the brutal massacre of Hazara men, new investigation. And this is by Amnesty International, stating Taliban fighters massacred 9 ethnic Hazara men after taking control of Afghanistan's Ghani province last month. On the ground, researchers spoke to eyewitnesses who gave harrowing accounts of the killings, which took place between the 4th and 6th of July in the village of Mudakharat, Malistan district. 6 of the men were shot and 3 were tortured to death, including one man who was strangled with his own scarf and had his arm muscles sliced off. You can already see, ladies and gentlemen, the animalistic and brutal force of the Taliban. And it is surprising and how naive and how gullible are the Shia to think that maybe they have reformed.
Just sorry to interrupt, but we need to wrap up. It's 6:50 right now.
We'll wrap up, inshallah. We'll conclude. We'll conclude with the statements, inshallah. It is shocking to believe and to come to see that the Shia have fell to the deceive of the Taliban in believing that they have reformed. This article disproves everything that they have mentioned. They've already begun to cause ravage to the Shia in Afghanistan and kill the Hazara minority. I remind the dear viewers to seek and heed the call of Sheikh al-Habib in forming a rain force, in forming a resistance under the supervision and under the umbrella of the Marja'iyah. Such a rain force with its prudent leaders and skilled, upright fighters shall be the solution to eradicating terrorism worldwide. And there, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude this show. We have 10 minutes to conclude. Do we have time to have calls or not?
No, sorry, we need to wrap up right now. There's another show happening.
There's another show happening, inshallah.
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, it was my intention to open calls. It was my intention to take your comments. However, this matter was slightly prolonged, and hopefully the brothers and sisters, as well as the ladies and gentlemen who are listening, can forgive us. You will have a chance, inshallah, to voice out your opinions, to voice out what you deem to be the solution to this worldwide crisis, calamity that we are in today. Until next time, inshallah, on the Ali al-Habib show. هذا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على قتلتهم وأعدائهم أجمعين.